Right at the start, I want to let you guys know that this video will make you uncomfortable. If you or anyone you know is a victim of sexual abuse, this video may trigger you. So I suggest taking a moment between each section and also rewatching the video multiple times, as you're likely to miss something important with just one viewing. I'm encouraged to say that while I'm no certified expert on the subject, this video will demonstrate my knowledge, experience, and grasp on the topic. At the very least, I intend to spark more discussion about everything addressed in this video. I'm also going to say some very unsettling things about my own history with sexual abuse. However, just bear with me, and perhaps I can use the rest of what's left of my derailed existence to solve a problem that I've had the misfortune of witnessing not only in myself, but in others. It's hard to know from what point to start describing the sexual abuse cycle. There's a point of origin for all victims, but it's very hard to locate the exact source of the problem. Without going into much detail, this is my best attempt to illustrate it. Imagine that all children start off with a clean slate, as blank canvases in life, bound on a regular path, represented here. Now, this shows how the cycle infiltrates a regular life path, and then spreads to other life paths like an infection. It's a cycle like this that ruins many lives with its pervasive movement through society. Most victims blame the previous victim for what occurred, not realizing that they also went through the experience of being manipulated, used, and misled. As I said earlier, children start off as blank canvases, and only what they're taught and experienced guides them in their decision-making abilities. If there were no adults around to teach them what days, weeks, months, or years were, a lot of them will grow up without any realization of what age is. Inherently speaking, the first people to get to a child are the ones who determine what that child considers normal life. So imagine the tragedy that occurs when this cycle introduces itself as regular behavior to a child that has no real sense of what morality is. To most children, right and wrong correlates more with what they'll be punished for than it does with any real understanding of ethics. Imagine putting a child through the trolley scenario, in which they must decide whether to let 5 people die or make a small change, letting those 5 people live in exchange for one life. Those are decisions that not even some adults agree with what the right thing to do is. So why would we pretend that these children are some sort of gods of morality when they themselves are just caught in what we're all trying to decide for them? While it needs to be said that not all victims of this cycle become perpetrators of it themselves, it is important to discuss the context in which these transitions occur. My own personal experiences with this cycle taught me that it was a playful secret, something as childish as hiding the use of profanity when your parents weren't around. I think it really only occurs one of two ways. The first is as simple as a group of kids seeing sexually explicit content on their own, not having the maturity to explore their curiosity and confusion in a healthy way. Without proper sexual education and adjustment, moments like these can lead to dangerous attempts and experiments. The second is that these same kids, not understanding the gravity of their behaviors, practice them with other children who are also not prepared to respond to these ideas and images. For example, an older child thinking it's funny showing a younger kid pornography. Without supervision, moments like these can lead to escalation that none of them are prepared to handle. In these cases, the spread of this behavior is similar to that of the spread of drug abuse amongst teens. For the victims that don't become perpetrators, I think it's likely because how the experience felt for them. For some, it's presented as play, as a secret, as something fun to hide from everything. For others, it's actually presented as a form of helplessness, something that they've got no control over, something that they've got no say in. How you associate these experiences, how you feel about these experiences, will determine whether or not you think it's appropriate to continue these experiments. As far as it goes, a child is most likely not going to do something they feel bad while doing it. But if you teach a child that it's not bad to do something, chances are they're not going to develop any sort of trigger that prevents them from doing it in the future. Unfortunately, I was caught in this cycle at a very young age. It ended before I was even a teenager. I got therapy at the age of 12 and so on, and at this point I can say I don't really need to be cured, but unfortunately I wanted to understand why all this happened to me. I'm not going to list everything that happened because, in my opinion, I don't think it's fair for victims of this cycle to have to live with this being their relative point of existence. As far as it goes, when everything happened, when everyone was caught, when we all started getting help for it, the first thing everyone tried to do was find an external source to blame everything on. And like I said earlier in the video, when something like this happens, people tend to blame the previous victim for everything that occurred. And so I was in the opposition. I had multiple abusers, but that's not important. I mean, that is important, but that's not important. What's important is expressing that at this point, victims of something like this should really be allowed a clean slate, or at least if we're gonna still hold some accountable for it, let's at least keep the ones that are genuine victims from having to remember or relive any of this ever again, because that's really important. It's not their fault that it happened, therefore they shouldn't have to live in response to it forever. One of the things that really bothers me about the whole situation is that as of now, I feel like I have more guides to my behavior that are holistic in a way, that are more godlike. And I'm pissed because I'm wondering, where were these when I was a kid? Why is it that everything decided to wait until after I was abused and misguided to step in and make something happen, to step in and make a change? I'm kind of hurt by that. But I had moved past that. I haven't moved past it, but I moved past that. At this point, it's more important to prevent this from happening again and to help those who got caught in it understand that it isn't their fault, as much as I possibly can. I mean, once again, we were kids. Most of this happened before I was even a teenager. All of it, well, let's be real, all of it happened before I was a teenager. All of it happened before I was a teenager. That being said, if you wouldn't hold, as us as adults, if you wouldn't hold the kid accountable for it and blame it all on them right now, especially if you found out that this is what they were taught, you got to give yourself that same kind of, not lenience, but forgiveness. This is the only way to really move forward for me, because a lot's happened. I told a group of people I told my friends what happened, and ever since then, my life has been chaotic and miserable. I've been told several times that I deserve shit because I, quote, rape kids, which, by the way, is coming from people that don't understand what happened. That is a complete slandering of the entire situation. And not only am I offended, I'm good now, but you know what I mean. Like, I was there for a second. It's funny to see something like this be talked about, discussed, and spread without all the facts and information. Because what I'm learning is a lot of people heard this and assumed that this all happened recently, or it happened while I was an adult. And so I was being treated a certain way. I had to deal with social vigilantes who attempted to set me up under the guise that they were justified to do it because I needed to be punished. I was already, whatever. But at this point, I'm hoping this just kind of clears all that up for me. If not, it makes things so much worse that shit, it is what it is, you know what I mean? I really don't know. Apparently I've been warned, so we'll see what happens. But at this point, I think that's pretty much all I can say on it. As a kid, shit, man, I've done a damn good job of understanding, explaining, and preventing this shit from happening again. So, you know, no disrespect, but fuck you if you want to judge me for this. I mean, shit, fuck you, honestly. No offense, but fuck you. No offense. I'm pissed. I kind of want revenge against everything. I do want revenge against everything, but that's another story for another time. Yeah, I mean, The best way for me to kind of equate this, and I hate for this to be a rant at the end of the video, is to say, you know how we get promoted though, we get advertised those videos of like third world countries, and they're all sick and they're all dying. You know, imagine a baby being born, starving the entire time, and then dying. What life did that child get to live? What life did that child actually get? For me, it feels like I was killed before I was even conscious. It felt like I was killed before I was even aware of what was going on. I fucking hate this. Yeah, I mean, that's really it. At this point, I'm sorry. This isn't funny. I'm sorry. That's really it. That's really it. I mean, it's obvious how to end this. Education. That's it, man. Just educating people. This is the best that I can do for it. No fucking way in hell that I'm gonna get the government to mandate sexual education again. There's no fucking way, man. Actually, there is a way. Actually, now that I think about it, that might really be possible. If something like this becomes more public, I've noticed that the more and more I've talked about this with other people, the more and more open they've been with me about their own history with the same thing. So I'm at a point where I'm just like, I found my peace with the situation. I deal with unfortunate, ignorant people who don't understand everything that happened, trying to hold me accountable in a way that they're not even holding themselves accountable for the things that they've done in their past. So at this point, I've said at this point too many times, this is the end of the video.